My name is Bruce Cleveland, and I'm leading this panel on selling more with sales intelligence. If you're in the wrong room, probably now's a great time to find your next spot. What I'm going to first do is have the panelists just introduce themselves. I'll ask you guys then to give a little bit more about your companies, et cetera, in a little bit. But I'll provide some introductory remarks, and then we can move into maybe some questions that we have. So why don't we start with you, Mark?
Sure. My name is Mark Miller. I'm CEO of a company called Spearfish. So essentially, there's 20 million salespeople in the U.S., about 100 million sales calls being made today, and there's no line of sight into these calls. And we think that's problematic in the sense it's very difficult to determine what your best people do versus your average. So what we do essentially is enable sales teams with an application to use their tablet as a note-taking tool, except these notes bring the questions to the table, which guide the process, capture my scribes, and captures the audio of the interaction. And we sync all that data up. We send it up to the cloud, and we convert it all to text. It knows my voice versus your voice, right? We've captured the audio. And essentially what you get to find out is what the best people are doing is a way to transfer that to the middle level group. And salespeople can get feedback virtually from their managers on real-time performance. Sales engineers don't have to rely on the sales guy to tell them what happened. And sales leaders get real-time analytics into their people and their process and their technologies. We think this interaction is a new asset for not only the sales guys, but the marketing guys and the product managers to create better campaigns and innovate. So that's kind of the hole that we fill between what marketing does and what happens after a sales call.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Okay. Hi, I'm Brian Kelly, and I'm the Chief Marketing Officer of Inside View. This is my fourth week as CMO at Inside View. And what Inside View does is we gather data from about 30,000 different sources, including Facebook, Twitter, and media sources, so social data, media data, and financial data about companies and the people within those companies. And then we provide that in a very integrated way into your Salesforce automation tool so that your field, your Salesforce has access to that data. So they're aware of inside information about the companies and the people in the companies. Instead of them going out and doing it on their own in a haphazard way, because we all know that every salesperson in the world probably is going to LinkedIn and then to Google and then to Reuters and trying to gather information to get an inside track, either to get into an account with some relevant information or to just know about their accounts so that they can be aware of changes. And so the salespeople leverage our data, and we watch their accounts for them. So this is a really important component of Inside View is we watch the accounts and we tell them about interesting or relevant information, like there was a fundraising event or an acquisition or a new office opened, or there was a shift in the people in the management who may be a decision maker that you've been working with or is in charge of your product at that account. So that you can leverage that information, again, to make an introduction to yourself within the company, figure out the connections, the people that you know, that know people in the company that you want to contact. And then you can also track it if there's, for your account management or customer service reps, if there's big changes in that account that you need to be aware of for, retention and upsell and cross-sell, you leverage that information as well.
I'm Carolyn. I'm marketing manager for Gaugent. I'm actually replacing Maggie as she had a scheduling conflict. But basically what Gaugent is a visual sales intelligence platform, and our main focus is really advancing social selling. And so the notion of that is really being able to utilize the best platforms possible in order to engage your customers and prospects, for example. So the way we do this is by presenting the intelligence in a very visual manner. So what we came up with is called Sales Graph, and what it does is it provides a snapshot view of the intelligence that our users need in order to go and reach out to their target accounts. So whether it be stuff like account updates, like contact information to key company background data, we aggregate all that and then we present it to our users. And the technology behind this is really kind of merging machine learning with big data. And so our algorithms go out to the web and they go and extract the intelligence our users need and present it to them, again, using sales graph. And as our algorithms extract more and more, they're able to become better at predicting what types of intelligence, what types of information are more relevant, more valuable to our users. Because in the end, we believe that the most informed sales teams close the most deals. That's my part.
My name is Mark Cunningham. I'm the founder and CEO at Indice. So Indice is a BI platform, a reporting and analytics platform in the cloud. So you take all the traditional things that you think about in the business intelligence world. You have things like accessing data, consolidating data. So you hear things like data warehousing and reporting and dashboarding and those things. So essentially what we did is we wanted to take the complexity out of it. So we created a very simplified user experience that allows you to do the entire process end to end. So you can get to the data, bring the data together, mash it, create reports and dashboards, and share and collaborate around that data with other users. So we're a platform, but the reason why I'm here is, from a sales intelligence perspective, one of the things that we do on our platform is we build applications on top of our platform. So we have specific applications that we've put into the Salesforce App Exchange around sales and marketing. And one of those applications is a sales analytics app that allows us to connect the idea of social data. So the Salesforce has got a product called Chatter, and it allows us to connect the dots between how is the collaborative aspect of using something like Chatter or Jive or Yammer impacting sales, average deal size, close rates, and so on. And so what we've done is created a method to be able to bring that data together and sort of map a correlation between social and more collaborative interaction inside of an organization, not just the outside in Twitter and Facebook, but what's happening inside the organization. How is that collaboration impacting sales? So that's one of the reasons why I'm here from a sales intelligence perspective. But we are an independent cloud platform, so we do, if you're an ISV, we bundle our application into other ISV applications. So if you want to snap reporting into your cloud app, we provide a bunch of APIs for people to be able to do that.
Great, thanks. So before we kind of kick it off into some of the questions that the panel, that I have for the panel, what I thought I'd do is maybe lay some context down so we can operate off of that. So today I'm a GP at Interwest. I've been there for about 6 years. I invest in B2B app companies, et cetera. The first investment I made was in an idea that became a company called Marketo, which is today on its IPO roadshow. And it was based on a theory, a set of theses I had as the chief product officer for Siebel Systems. So I was one of the founders of Siebel and helped to build a lot of those products. One of the companies that we acquired in 1997 was a company called Interactive Workplace. A guy named Ken Jeffers out of Boston built it. It was one of the first instantiations of taking what then was effectively screen scraping technology, if you will, or web crawling technology, and using that to provide before the call information. So sales intelligence has always had a very sort of been a guilty pleasure of mine. I've always thought that if you're going to invest in a CRM system, you're going to build the basic fundamental underlying transactional store for all this data, then why aren't you, which is primarily targeted towards sales management and executives, then why aren't you also investing in the tooling that would actually enable your reps to make money using that data generated through the CRM system as well as external data sources. So that's the reason why I was interested in moderating the panel. And what I thought I might do is give you some facts, or at least purported facts, about this area. And then we'll use that to sort of tee off of for a number of the panel questions. So CSO Insights, a guy named Jim Dickey, who I used to work with, I don't know, 20 years ago. You might have run into him. Good guy. Runs a practice basically around chief sales officers. They poll 5,000 different companies on an annual basis. They produce a pretty good report. And most of the people, whether it's Salesforce, anybody in CRM really uses Jim and his company, their back-end statistics to sort of either build new products or to prove that their products are important. So CSO Insight stated that in a recent survey that 92% of companies had raised quotas year over year, but they hadn't effectively added more personnel. So effectively want people to do more with less. And if you couple that with an Accenture study called Connecting the Dots on Sales Performance, sales organizations from that have basically ranked 3 areas that they know they need to improve in. One is customer-centric sales methodologies and processes. The second is sales talent. I think that's pretty well known. And then finally, sales tool adoption. And what they mean by sales tool adoption is sales rep adoption. Another stat from Aberdeen Group in a recent white paper is that out of their top performers, that is out of companies' top performers, 75% declared that they had insufficient knowledge of the business needs of prospective buyers, and 64% were unable to identify the most likely buyers of the product or service that they were trying to sell. And then finally, studies have shown, some that I've read, and I didn't source these, but several studies that I've read recently, either out of Gardner or others, suggest that, that only roughly less than 10% of all companies who use a CRM system actually use some form of sales intelligence as a tool for their reps. And that those who do, though, generate somewhere around 5 to 10% higher revenue performance rates. So with that data, and I mean it is available to everybody, it's not unknown, I'm sure every one of you have read these stats or seen these stats, you know, it's a rather remarkable to me that even though the concept of CRM has been in place now for 15 years, we still don't really have people applying this technology all the way down to the rep level. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk a little bit about what's available from each of these companies. How do these tools or applications, how do they really assist us? And why haven't the majority of companies yet adopted? And what can we expect in the future from these companies and maybe others in terms of sales intelligence? Now that we've laid the foundational elements for it, what kinds of things can we do with it? So to kick it off, each of one of you have already given an explanation for what you do, but what I thought I might ask is, given where you are right now with your company, I'd ask the Sequoia question, which would be, why now? You know, what is it about your technology? Why can you do what you're doing now, and why is it important compared to 10 years ago or even 5 years ago? So I'm going to start with you, Mark.
Well, I think corporate failure rate, companies you work for are failing at an ever-increasing rate. It's harder to sustain profitable growth, right? I mean, much more difficult today than it was 10 years ago. Your business models are changing every 2 or 3 years, fundamentally moving from transactional sometimes to customer intimate or total solutions. And every time you change your model, you've got to figure out how to change the conversations that you have with customers. So, our point of view is the fact that salespeople get very little feedback on these conversations. They're expected to be more strategic, more consultative, less salespeople, more business people who sell. But if you don't give them feedback, they're going to stay the same as they were in that transactional days. And nobody's got time to go out in the field and watch them, right? Your sales managers don't have time to go out there and do performance coaching and observe. So the capture of these interactions, these are we think the new assets of the enterprise, that if you can capture unstructured voice data, does that make sense? And structure it in silos to find out what your top 10% of salespeople do as a way to transfer to the average people, end up delivering more customer value at the end of the day. Does that make sense? So if I'm a salesperson, I learn how to add more value to my clients. I add more value to my enterprise because I'm more productive, at the end of the day. And that asset also benefits the marketing guys and the product manager. So, and here's the big one. They already have the tool, they have the tablet, and customers will let you do it. So we've done thousands of sales calls with customers. It's 90% acceptance rate of capturing the interaction because customers don't want to have to re-explain it, right? They want you to get it. They're looking for value from salespeople who typically forget, 50 to 80% of the conversation within a matter of weeks. We think that's a big problem when there's 100 million sales calls being made today. We think this is a lagging profession that lacks an empirical approach to creating customers and developing them. So that's our point of view.
Great. How about Carolyn? Why don't we ask you same question? Why now? Why Gaijin?
I think we mostly all know that the ecosystem is changing. I mean, I just saw a tweet today that said 50% of the sales process is already finished by the time salespeople are called into it, which means that customers are already doing their own research and they're contacting the salespeople when they're ready to be sold to, quote unquote. The fact that customers are getting really good at letting these phone calls go to voicemail, letting cold emails go to spam, I think that it's really time for us to, get with the times, to be able to engage the customer in a way that they appreciate being engaged. So that's why we came out with our sales triggers. That's why we came out with our visual sales intelligence. We're allowing our sales reps to be able to really quickly find out the information they need before they go and contact their target accounts. And I think that's why we're doing what we're doing today.
Mark, same question.
Yeah, I think about this maybe at a macro level. I mean, kind of the trend. I mean, I mentioned it in the intro. I think there's one thing, I come at it from an analytics perspective, right? So I think about analytics and go, well, what's the big barrier to doing analytics? The big barrier is that data's hard, it's messy, it's tricky. How do you go get data from all these different data sources and be able to pull it together to kind of do the intelligence you need? And that's been the thing. I've been in this industry for 25 years, and I created a product early on at Crystal called Crystal Reports, and that was our big barrier. Was we had this great tool, but getting to the data and accessing the data was a challenge. And I think the cloud is enabling a whole new kind of breed of being able to access data in a whole different way. So I think that there's sort of a shifting of the ability to access data is getting easier. It's still not that easy. It's still pretty damn hard in a lot of cases. But I think also the tools are getting simpler to use, right? So our application is very user-friendly. We're trying to go for the frictionless self-serve idea and give a business analyst the ability to do the entire thing all by themselves without having to hire armies of consultants in between the whole process. So I think that's one big kind of thing. And then I think there's another sort of macro trend if you look at sort of, there's sort of a lagging effect, I think, with this stuff. If you look at sort of mainframe EIS solutions, right? Client server, I pitched you this. Client server reporting, desktop reporting tools, and now you've got cloud, and what did desktop reporting do? Desktop reporting was, in the 90s, was all about ERP. ERP was the 90s, right? It was all about putting in ERP, getting that going, turning the crank, and BI lagged, right? BI came in after they got ERP going, so year 2000 came, then all of a sudden BI took off, right? Bob J and Cognos and all these companies exploded, and BI was being sold everywhere. And so it was successful after ERP became successful. So I kind of view it like, now you got CRM, right? So CRM's like it's the new ERP. So basically all of these tools, whether it's sort of, these specific sales intelligence or platforms like us, I kind of view it as it's going to happen because there's just a lagging effect that's happening, right? So CRM is the big driver, and, Salesforce or whoever is just driving, licensing or subscriptions to Salesforce. Eventually, I think that the intelligence and the getting the data is going to be the next obvious step. Just like in ERP, reporting was kind of the next obvious step. So I think it's just a matter of there's a lagging effect that's happening. So I think about it more at a macro level.
So isn't this mostly, we have a data in problem? I mean, that typically is the issue, trying to take these disparate systems and somehow making sure that we can pull this in and, maybe in deal time, right?
Yeah.
So in time enough to be able to get the deal to happen.
Yeah.
So what are you doing to help sort of ameliorate that problem?
Yeah. So we spend a ton of time, a big part of what we do is data orchestration. So it's all about data mashup for us. I mean, everybody's got reports and dashboards and all that neat stuff. We've been doing that for 20 years. The hard problem is actually the mashing of the data and getting access to the data and doing it in a way that a typical user can actually do. So we've spent a lot of time building out adapter technologies and things that are easier for a business user to be able to access this stuff. And that's where we've really focused, is in that back end piece, if you will, right, in order to be able to do the mashing part of it, because that really will enable all of the front end stuff that comes out of it. So that's where we spent a ton of our time.
Right. So Brian, Inside View has been around for a while, acquired a couple companies along the way. Talk about kind of the growth, kind of the adoption issue, in this. So why now? You're obviously seeing growth, especially as of the last year or so. What's behind that?
Yeah, so it definitely has accelerated in the last year, and our sales intelligence tool, we just surpassed 11,000 companies that are using the product. And I think what we've seen in the last year, I kind of use the analogy of when Salesforce automation took hold. And the fact of the matter is, with Salesforce automation, salespeople are already out doing it on an individual basis. I'm sure we all remember our, well, I do with the gray hair, Rolodexes and note cards, and keeping track of our sales initiatives, you know, kind of in a written way, and it was all dispersed, and we were doing it, and it was extremely inefficient. And then to be able to scale as a company, it became an imperative to put an automation process in place. And it's pretty obvious that that was extremely effective in managing large sales forces and enabling companies to scale and become more efficient. Well, the same phenomena is happening now, whereas this inside information about the companies that you're trying to get into, who are now guarded and informed, as Caroline said, about the people that you're trying to contact and how you can get a introduction to them. It's necessary in order to be effective in getting into companies and into clients and keeping track of it. So whereas before, and what's happening, and the reason I brought up the Salesforce automation example is, again, what's going on in the field is your sales reps are out there going into LinkedIn and going into Google, and it's absolutely a requirement to have information, financial information. You know, what's the revenue of the company, where are they located, so that you know which rep it should go to and route it and score it. Well, it's happening in a very inefficient way. And now we're finding, in order to, again, get another level of scale and efficiency, you need a platform that is actually going out there. And so what we're doing is we're, again, pulling together 30,000 sources of data, triangulating it, making it the most accurate and complete and up-to-date source of this inside information into the companies that you're trying to get. And we're actually creating, beyond sales intelligence, a CRM intelligence layer that spans marketing and sales, which is our bread and butter today, and account management. So I think the key point that I'm trying to make is, as you said, the CRM automation has got a strong hold, and you know, our statement is that without CRM intelligence, you really can't do CRM anymore efficiently and effectively to scale your business. So that's why I think we're seeing, you know, an acceleration in the adoption of CRM intelligence today.
Yeah. So it used to be, was a case that these tools used and processed structured and semi-structured data. Those, you know, whether it was through Hoovers or whatever particular source or internal to your CRM system. Today we have literally an explosion of unstructured data that, and I think, Mark, you were alluding to this a little earlier about what you guys have done. And it's, you know, obviously an architecture well developed for one of these solutions is not necessarily well developed for others. So I guess I'll start it off with you, Mark. What kind of technology undercarriage changes have you had to make? What have you had to do to support sort of this new world?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. The idea that we wanted to help our clients to be much better at the interactions they have with their customers and prospects. We felt to do that, you had to capture that data. But if you're going to do that, you need to know something about the conversation, right? Is it a stage one call? Was it a successful outcome? What was the call strategy going in? So we said, well, we'll just pull that data. We'll write a connector to Salesforce. We'll just pull that data in. So the first thing you learn is nobody's compliant with their CRM. You know, half the salespeople are, half aren't. They have a love-hate relationship. They hate inputting the data. So we needed that structured data because we figured out how to, right, take unstructured data and structured it, but we needed that metadata, so to speak. So, you know, we just basically created an app, a skin, where you can just voice in by discrete field your CRM data, your Salesforce, and it literally, as you touch your field, call summary, you talk, it just converts the text right in front of you, you hit upload, and you are done. It's sitting over in Salesforce in literally 3 minutes, and you go from 50% compliance with the sales team to 100% around that metadata, and now we know something about the interaction to do analytics on. Does that make sense? So that's the adjustment. We had to make a pretty big adjustment, and you know, and Salesforce loves it, right? Because wow, here's an easy way for my salespeople to be compliant to their CRM as an offshoot. It amplifies their investment in that technology.
Great. Carolyn, you mentioned about Gauging using machine learning. So this is obviously something new, something different, right? So talk about how you guys are applying that to this same problem, new technology applied to maybe new ways of selling.
I think when we were deciding whether we should integrate Twitter, Facebook feeds into our platform, we really had to weigh in, okay, what is the variety of data we can get as opposed to the accuracy of the data we can get. And I think in the end, we decided, Twitter and Facebook, they're really, really great tools. They're really great places for conversations, between a sales rep and their communities. But at the end, it's not worth it to kind of, I don't want to say pollute, but in a sense pollute our sales intelligence feeds with that kind of data. And so what we did instead was we said, hey, let's take our machine learning and we'll go out and we'll extract the data that is very valuable, very relevant and accurate to our sales users. And then instead of just giving them the feeds right inside of their home pages, we'll say, hey, here is a visual of your account. Okay, so here is their account information, and here are their social media links. Here's their Twitter, here's their Facebook, their LinkedIn, wherever they're communicating, wherever they're engaging with their communities, we'll give you the link to those, and you can go on there very easily and go engage your target account on those platforms directly. So I think easy access, not necessarily integrating everything into your platform, I think that's the solution that we've gone with today.
So Bren, you guys have been around a little longer, so you made some architectural decisions a few years ago. Then we bolted in things like unstructured data. What have you guys had to do to be able to adapt and utilize that?
Yeah, so our underlying data structure was really already ready for unstructured data from the onset, because we were already collecting news feeds and news sources, and we categorize those with natural language processing, and we're able to make the links and distinctions from companies and people from that unstructured data. We really embraced Twitter and Facebook and the feeds that we get from them. And again, we apply natural language processing to kind of sift out what we believe is true to be relevant. And then we're able to categorize that information. Again, the whole idea is to spoon feed your reps with their to-do list for the day in our Inside View for Sales product. So again, just a couple of examples would be, we're looking for information that maybe there was an acquisition within a company. Maybe there was a new hire or someone left within a company. Maybe they raised some money or opened a new office. These are all things that you can collect from tweets or from news and media stories, and again, bringing it all together and then surfacing it in a way so that when the reps get to work in the morning or during the day, they're presented with the most up-to-date kind of view, and they can leverage that to make a call to cross-sell or upsell, or to make sure that they don't lose a stronghold in that account. So we've been doing Twitter and Facebook for since Facebook went away from .edu, and since Twitter, like 4 years now. I think we've been incorporating Twitter into our product.
Great. So Mark, you probably had the cleanest sheet of paper, and you came from the world of structured data. What are you guys doing to take what is a more traditional sort of analytics approach, but also incorporating some of these new data sources into your products?
Well, I think there's sort of the proliferation of the social enterprise, if you will. So we're more focused kind of on that idea of social enterprise, and definitely the types of data that you can get access to are changing. So in the old structured world, you're dealing with ERP and CRM, sort of these traditional things, and then you throw social in there, and suddenly it's different because people want to know different things. First of all, it's like on a fire hose of data, kind of like Twitter, but something like Chatter or Yammer or whatever, similar idea, a little bit lower volume than a Twitter or a Facebook or something, but it's still more fire hose. So for us, from a technological perspective, we had to really kind of think about how we're going to build out our engine. We built a bunch of IP in our data engine, which we call it sort of a hybrid engine, which allows us to simultaneously accept feeds from a real-time type stream simultaneously while we're able to read historical traditional business data at the same time and display the data on the same dashboard. So you can have a real-time gauge moving, and you can have a historical trend all in the same dashboard. It's a fairly unique thing. Most people that do real time, right? So everything's real time. They have moving gauges everywhere, but they don't have a lot of historical, and vice versa. The historical guys typically don't do real time. And I think there's a shifting that needs to happen because of the shifting in the type of data that we can get access to. You need to be able to do both, and that's one big technological kind of shift that we're seeing, and we build a bunch of technology around being able to do that.
So why don't we kind of make this less abstract and more real? Why don't we take your technology and describe maybe a sales process that you feel that a use case that you've identified and that you have found to be a unique way to apply your technology against that particular case, so everybody here gets a more practical understanding of how you might apply some of these new technologies to their organizations. Why don't we start with you, Mark?
Okay. Recall competes with Iron Mountain. It's about $1 billion company. They put documents in boxes. They shred them. They had just introduced a new line of document imaging software. They launched our technology with 40 salespeople in their East region. They have 4 regions. And they now had transparency into sales calls. They began collecting hundreds and thousands of sales calls. And the first thing they learned was that the salespeople were all talking about shredding the documents and putting them in boxes with customers, but not the document imaging software. Even though all the salespeople said they were talking about these things, it was a very tiny % of the conversations. So I can tell you in 60 days with that line of sight, those conversations changed very quickly because you now had transparency and you could structure that data. So very quickly, leadership learned which salespeople could execute on sales methodology much more quickly on hires. There were feedback loops to salespeople because when you give salespeople feedback on their conversational fluence, people get better quicker. And in that particular case, new business development literally grew 276% within 12 months. The VP of Sales flew down to a conference 2 months ago, the Sales Management Association, to talk about this. That it was profound, the rise in productivity, because we think when you add transparency, at least he did, to a sales environment, you can structure that data, you can improve those conversations. And if you can improve the conversations, you can radically improve the commerce, right? But you got to get line of sight there. You got to capture that data. And this helps salespeople. It makes their life easier. It makes them better. That's why they will go along with it, and they'll do it, we think.
Yeah, Brian, same question. So use case.
Yeah, sure. So Rosetta Stone is a customer of Inside View, and we just published a case study of the account, and it's actually just got published in the CRM magazine, I think yesterday or the day before, and it's a really nice read. But the use case there was we armed their entire sales force with Inside View for Sales, and as a result of having the information on how to establish connections and understand the account and the opportunities within the accounts that they were calling on, relevant information about news and information that's been going on in the account. They increased the win rates by 22% of their sales reps. Sorry, 12%. 4 weeks in, 12% on their win rates. The 22% was really significant as well, and that was on the marketing side. So the conversion from leads to opportunities was increased by 22% by having more targeted leads as a result of having this information, again, about the companies that they're targeting and the message that they could send them that could be relevant based on having an inside view and the people within the company that they were targeting and having the relevant information and connections in. And then a really big one that they were was a focus that they published was increasing their average sale price. And by having a broader view of the organization and contacts into different lines of business within the organization that would benefit from Rosetta Stone, they increased their average sales price by 33%, which was obviously a very significant increase. So that's one solid use case of Inside View in an account.
Great. Caroline?
So I have, I guess, one statistic or number, and then I'll go into the use case. So we had one user who is part of a Fortune 1000 company, and as he was using Gaijin, he said that it cut down his research time on his prospects from around an hour to just 10 minutes each morning. So we thought that was a pretty good number to use. I don't have an actual use case of our sales graph yet because it's a feature that's about to come out. But what I will say is we had a user from House, which is like an online magazine for home improvement. So he is in charge of the advertising department, and basically he was using our platform, and he saw a trigger that said, Williams-Sonoma has a new CMO. And so he said, great, that's a really good piece of news. So he used our platform to find that CMO on LinkedIn, I believe it was. So on top of LinkedIn, you know, we also give you the Twitter feeds, we give you the Facebook profiles, et cetera, et cetera. He was able to go and reach out to the CMO and, you know, start engaging with him, which I think is a really, really good illustration of how sales intelligence today can be used to really move the sales process forward, to engage the right person at the right time.
Mark, same question.
So one of our customers, Maxim Integrated, is using Salesforce, a big Salesforce customer. So kind of two things were going on there. What they really wanted to kind of understand, they had Salesforce and they had their CRM product and they were entering opportunities in the CRM. Then they had Chatter going where they're doing a lot of kind of social interactions in there. One of the things, if you're not familiar with Salesforce, is that they can actually connect. You can go and create Chatter in opportunity objects. So you can actually create collaboration on various objects within Salesforce. It's a pretty cool feature because it allows you to kind of start seeing collaboration around a particular opportunity and see whether it's having any impact. So, you know, what happened was first of all, they put these two things in. They got CRM and they've got the Chatter part of it. And so the first question they asked, even before you get into the sales intelligence side of it, is anybody using the damn thing, right? And so one of the things that we find really revealing when we, you know, maybe to Benioff's chagrin, is that you know, we do the analytics on this stuff, and you know, somebody they say, well, we've got 10,000 users using Chatter, and then we run our analytics on it, and we go, well, it's 1.2% adoption of that particular application. So of course, what happens is before you get into sales intelligence, it's just like we just need people to use this damn thing, right? And so you get into a mode of training and best practices and all these different things to get people going. And so that's one of the things that we really end up working with our customers around. And we don't get into the services side of it, but we work with services partners that help us with this, where we can kind of go, hey, you guys need to go in there and help these guys get their adoption up, because if they're not entering the stuff in, it's kind of useless, back to the your point before. And the same thing with the CRM. The adoption of CRM tends to be a challenge. People buy CRM, but the adoption rate is actually the actual usage, sales guys logging in. So that's the first step, is actually just getting people to use the CRM, getting people to use the social enterprise network. And then they want to go, well, what's the interaction of those two things? And that's where our sales intelligence side comes, is once we get the adoption up and the salespeople are logging in and actually inputting things into Salesforce and interacting with Chatter, the next step is to get them to chatter around the opportunity objects, right? Because basically what happens is people just go and chatter kind of like they're on Facebook or something, and it's independent of their opportunity work that the salespeople are doing, and you've got to get them to actually do both. So the idea of this is really kind of the analytics kind of reveal where they need to kind of point their efforts in order to kind of creating more adoption, and then obviously then you can start getting into, well, how is more collaboration improving sales? And so what we've seen is in a number of our customers, there's a definite correlation around more collaboration around opportunity objects, they sell more. And we're seeing in a lot of cases, 20, 25% kind of improvement around greater collaboration around opportunity objects in selling more. Average deal sizes go up, and we're seeing that across the board. And for us, what we see doing is actually benchmarking that, right? So we can do that across 100 software companies and say, hey, this is what's kind of going on across all of them, and prove that social is actually impacting sales. So.
In the interest of time, why don't I ask one final question and then open it up? The question I would have is, okay, so this is where we are now. What do you guys see in terms of the next several years? What's kind of next? What's the next, what's on the horizon for sales intelligence? Where do you see it going through, whether it's through the use of taking advantage of BYOD or any of these other issues? Where's all this leading to? And I'll start it off. Mark, we'll just start with you again down at the end.
I mean, I think for me, it's, again, I think about it at a macro level. I think it's ease of use, right? I mean, I think it's a major challenge. We were talking about UX outside, right? And I think that, BYOD is one part of it, but I think that there's a massive ease of use challenge in order to create the adoption around this type of software in order to engage salespeople to actually utilize this stuff. And I think it's a big barrier for people. So I see that as a huge kind of trend moving forward.
Caroline?
I think it's really visual sales intelligence. I mean, mobile is such a huge part of the ecosystem right now. I mean, how many people right now have their tablets or their mobile phones right now, right? So I think that being able to sort of port these sales intelligence applications onto your mobile devices is really going to be a huge part in the future of sales intelligence, which Gaijin is trying to do today, obviously. That coupled with just mobile capabilities really go so far beyond what just laptops by themselves, what PCs and by themselves are able to do. I mean, take Google now, for example. Like, they're able to take a variety of information, such as the weather, and then combine it with your calendar to say, hey, this is the information you need today. Like, oh, today you're going to the beach, well, here's the weather, this is what you need to bring, right? If we're able to kind of bring these predictive analytics into your mobile solution, I think sales intelligence will really be able to kind of drive the future. I mean, this is really an innovative use of technology in order to arm our sales force with the tools they need in order to sell more.
Brad?
Yeah, I think making it simple for salespeople to leverage just the vast amount of information that they have access to. And I alluded to this earlier, but getting the data together or access to the data today is relatively easy. But being able to distill it down into useful information is what is the challenge. And even taking it one step further and applying some simple analytics or predictive analytics to it is, I think, a direction that we're headed. And so again, being able to spell out for the sales rep for marketing in the morning, how relevant is this opportunity to you today? And for example, if there was a VP that left or a VP that came to a company and they happened to come from a company that owned your product or a competitor's product, it sure would be nice to know that. So giving you, just applying some simple rules and some analytics so that, it's just not information and data overload, which we're all inundated with today, but distilling it down into valuable nuggets of gold that are basically just teed up for your, to spoon feed, if you will, your sales force with this intelligence on where they should spend their time, prioritizing the accounts for them based on, activity out in the market and out in the field in their target market, so that they can capitalize on the opportunities. I think that's really the direction that we're headed.
Great. And finally, Mark?
Yeah, and my vantage point would be that there's nothing more important than the voice of the customer. And that's a new kind of data that we think fills a big hole, because if you can capture that, what the customer is saying, deep listening, and help technology listen to those interactions that you have with your prospects and customers, you can not only improve your people, your sales processes, certainly your sales technologies, but you can figure out how to finally figure out how to deliver new types of customer value sustainably, right? You'll be much more innovative as a company, which we think is the holy grail. I mean, we work in hyper-efficient economies, and if you can capture that voice of customer and leverage that asset, we think it's something that can sustain, the growth of your enterprises again and again and again through different business models. So we think that's the missing piece of the puzzle, and we're looking forward to how that brings together marketing and sales, with this technology.
So why don't we take a few questions if there are any for the panel? I know this is just the most awkward
Maybe
moment
12.
of the-
Yeah, exactly. Nobody's gonna ask questions?
What's the price tag per rep range? I mean, is it like $100 a month, $1,000 a year?
Are you looking at me?
I'm looking at all of
Yeah.
them. Well,
Yeah, I mean,
I'll
our
do it one at a time.
Our list price for our highest end full function product, it's a freemium model, is about $100 a month a rep, and then it definitely goes volume discount down, and we service small, medium, and large enterprises alike. We've got companies with 5 employees and 1 sales rep, and we've got, 1,000-seat installations, so all over. Does anybody else want to answer that one?
A very small number relative to the growth it would drive, but between $30 and $60 a month for our technology, depending on the usage, right? So, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
Fair.
just looking for the ballpark.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
us,
that's
we
fair.
have apps
Yeah.
in the App Exchange for like $35 a month per user in the App Exchange, and then we have sort of a land and expand. They can upsell into our platform. And then when they move into the platform, it usually means they want to extend the application and add more data and that type of stuff. And then it gets a little bit more expensive where we get into creator licenses so they can create reports and dashboards. That's like $250 a user, but usually there's a smaller number of those. And then we have viewers, which are around $35 a month for viewing and looking at dashboards.
Around the same ballpark as these. We have the freemium model, so obviously your sales reps can go and test it out. But then on top of that, we have, between $30 to, I believe it's $100 a month per rep.
So let me ask you something. Just use a number like $1,500 a year, and you're driving multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars in sales. Why so cheap?
Information is cheap.
Pardon?
Information is cheap.
It's an interesting question.
I mean, if you raise
And
a lot of capital,
if you think of, there's a couple things driving the price point, and one of them I think is the Salesforce.com, right? Because they have this per seat price tag, and viewed as this big Salesforce automation, chatter, everything system. Well, you certainly can't go, well, we're twice as much as that, injecting information. While I think the value is higher for the intelligence layer, it's just this mindset of the market.
But,
And
yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
and I think the price actually, it scales nicely for us. It's the model of, software as a service, which allows us to get these economies of scale where the margins are in fact good, at those price points.
But what you really want is you want a price point to collect the data, because the value's not in the data, the value's in the benchmark data of what the best people are doing. So if you can price it cost effectively enough where everybody's using it, you get to figure out what the best people are doing. That's what people will pay for, because that helps them understand how to move the middle, which is 60% of their sales force, right? So I'd look at it and say, hey, $60 a month for our app if you don't use audio. If you use audio, $30. Because if we get that data, that is huge, huge value to an entire profession that has 20 million salespeople. Nobody knows what the best salespeople do. You all have an hypothesis or a theory. Nobody knows. There's no database in the world of sales calls. We have the only one, which is unbelievable, the way I would look at that. Pardon?
Why don't you charge?
So if I charge less, I get more data. If I get more data, I can charge for the research on the back end and the benchmark data, which is what everybody really wants to pay for. People want to pay for performance improvement. They don't want to pay for data collection, right? So you can code that data and pull out the best practices. I'll pay you for that. So make it cheap enough on the front end to get that data, right?
The back
And that,
end you charge?
pardon? Pardon?
The back end you charge?
The what?
The
Back
back
end.
end, after you've gathered all the data.
Well, it's a different discussion. Yeah, that's a different, well, it is a different discussion. It's a business model discussion, but it's a great question you bring up. Justin, you were going to ask something?
I was going to ask what instruments you use to track data, besides phone calls, but mainly for you guys as far as what you're doing to track the data, where you're pulling the information from.
What do you mean track the data?
Like as far as the CMO changes.
Oh, well, that's all our IP. I mean, we've got decades of engineering work, and, it's a combination of, triangulation algorithms, natural language processing, just mapping all these sources together, and, it really is our core IP. That's what, we've got 60 engineers working on that problem alone. It's a big problem, challenge, opportunity, whatever, however you want to phrase it.
Yeah, so similar, our algorithms go out to, when I say the web, we get data from company websites, we get it from their press releases, their company blogs, from news media sources, from Wall Street Journal down to the smaller tech blogs like TechCrunch, for example, and SEC filings, et cetera, to be able to bring all this information to you.
We've run to the end of our time. really appreciate the opportunity to talk to all of you, and I'm sure you guys are around to be able to have further conversations.